This is a good note to end on. As we move toward an increasingly AI-driven world, what are your thoughts on the future role of humans, and what advice would you give those who might feel threatened by the rise of AI?
I think about the threatened part a lot. I talk to a lot of people who are worried, who are fearful, who want to just not have AI be able to do what it's doing. They don't want it to be able to write or to do artwork. And I get that. I sympathize with that. I feel it myself a lot of times as a writer, as a husband of an artist, as the father of an artist. Like I feel that. Like I get it a lot. Um, I think that we basically have a choice. We can accept that AI is here and it's going to be ever present in our lives, or we can ignore it. I don't see ignoring it being a real option for professionals. I think that the best advice I can give is to embrace the technology, to figure out what it means to you, to figure out when and how it's going to impact your career, and to just be proactive in trying to solve this. The reality is that most organizations have no idea what to do about this. So I think there's unparalleled opportunities in your career to raise your hand and be part of the solution, to say, listen, I'm really interested in this space. I've become curious about it. I'm listening to this podcast. I'm demoing these technologies. I would love to help be the one to figure out what to do about this on our team, in our company. So I think there's opportunities for people at all levels to emerge as real change agents within the organizations, and honestly, to figure out what the next career paths are. Like if you ask me point blank, what are 5 new career paths based on AI 3 years from now, I would really struggle to envision what those roles are going to be. I could probably come up with a couple, but I think that more often than not, it's going to be you, the listener, who embraces AI, thinks about what you do, thinks about the context of the organization and the industry you do it in, and says, you know what I think is needed is this. Like I'll give you one example. I think I've told this story before on the show, but a couple of years ago, I did this talk for a healthcare organization for public affairs officers, like 150 public affairs people. And after the talk, a lady came up to me and she said, "Is AI ops a thing? Like, is that a role that exists?" And I said, "Not that I'm aware of. Like, what are you thinking?" And she said, "Well, we're in healthcare. This is going to be disruptive in many ways. There's no one that's thinking about that right now, and that is actually figuring out how to build the infrastructure, how to evolve the team, how to evolve our tech stack. I think there's an opportunity for me in my career." She was in her early 20s to be like an AI ops leader. And I was like, "Do it. Like, that's beautiful." And I think that's where we're at. We're entering this phase where people who push forward and learn this stuff and try to apply it, they're going to identify their own career paths. And then the leaders, like the CMOs who, really latch on to this, they're going to be thinking about, what does a next gen marketer look like in my organization and what roles am I going to need here? And so I think that's exciting. Like as much as I do fear disruption to knowledge workers and the potential for job loss as a result of this, I like to focus more on the positive aspects and the ideas that lots of new careers and opportunities are going to emerge. And people, potentially early in their career, even later in their career, if they're listening and paying attention, to be able to really kind of redefine their own career path and the value they create in their organization.
I think even in November, early December when ChatGPT came out, everyone's like, "Oh, prompt engineering is gonna be a huge thing. Prompt engineer is going to be a role." And don't you feel like we're all going to be prompt engineers? There's not.
Yeah, I think it's just a skill. I don't think it's a role. I've said that publicly before. I do think, like, as we do interviews for the hiring we're making, we're planning to make a couple of marketing hires. That's one of the questions you start weaving in is, talk to us about how you would give a prompt to GPT-4 for this. So I just feel like whether you're doing email or a podcast or building a plan, that's gonna be a required skill to, like, how if I gave someone a strategy, so I think about, again, like, all the people I hired and developed at my agency, how much time you spent teaching strategy. I always said strategy was by far the hardest thing to teach someone. You could look early in someone's career and say, "I think they have potential. They're a critical thinker. They connect the dots. They see things other people don't see." But it would take years to develop a great strategist. I really feel like AI can advance that so rapidly because you can just say, listen, here's the problem we need to solve. Here's the project brief. I want you to start by developing a prompt to give GPT-4, and we're going to talk through that prompt. Then we're going to give it to GPT-4. We're going to see the output, and then we're going to fine tune that prompt. I think that that's a way that AI can really accelerate the development of people from a strategic and critical thinking side if it's done right. But it is absolutely just going to be a skill set that's required of every marketer moving forward.
Absolutely. Any final words?
Oh boy, that was 15 of 'em, huh? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope, like, we thought, like, we get hundreds of these questions. I hope this was as valuable to you. You know, I know the questions and answer for you and me, Kathy, at the end of the intro is always our favorite part of doing that every time, because we do get incredible questions, and some of them are just so in depth, we can't go into them all, in that short time span. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe, like, again, if people like this, like, reach out on LinkedIn, let Kathy and I know, leave a comment, if this was helpful to you, because it might be something that we do more regularly, like, once a quarter or something. Just make sure we pop in and address some of these things, and then send them off to people who've done these intro classes. So, yeah, hopefully this was really helpful for you. We appreciate it, Kathy. Thanks as always for not only co-hosting today, pitching in here, but also moderating all of these intros and
It's
helping
great to
guide
see
this
my
along.
community. I love our community.
Yeah, and if again, if you're not in the Slack community, Kathy runs that as well. I think we're approaching 3,000 people in the free Slack community, so you can join that on our website as well. And Kathy's very active there, more active than I am. I try and be active in there, but
That's not your job, so you
I
shouldn't be.
know.
Um,
So
so
yeah,
I'll put a bunch of links in the show notes to a lot of things we discussed today, and I hope you found it valuable.
all right. Thanks. We will be back next week with your regularly scheduled weekly, where Mike and I were going to be catching up from 3 weeks of not having given you headlines. So we may have a super episode for you next week with all the headlines that we missed in early June. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk with you again soon.
Thanks, Paul.